baby, baby, it's a wild world. I would say it's a wild world, but you have to be brave. You have to contain yourself. Tell yourself to be bold, not to be afraid, because you need to express or you'll go crazy. Who was instrumental in molding me? My parents molded me into an Agnes that they could accept. I've always been a rebel. And when I made the temple to the moon goddess, it was because I was looking for an alternative deity. Because I had lost my virginity and I couldn't keep going back to the confessional to tell the priest, "Oh, Father, fornication." So I thought this was going to be really hypocritical, right? So I said I'd like to worship a God who is more forgiving, who is not so punitive, who is more nourishing, caring, all of this, that a mother, and if nature comes in cycles, as we know, there must have been a time when we as humans were praying to a mother goddess instead of a God, the Father. This is how I looked for my other self that had been yearning to be expressed. I think there's an efflorescence of talent coming from my gender because of all the centuries of being suppressed and oppressed, repressed. It's like when you bottle something down, it comes out in explodes. That's what, there's so many women now. When I first exhibited in New York, I exhibited 3 Buddha mothers. They asked us to speak, and I was saying to myself, well, there's this gaggle of geese following my work around. Oh no, I'm talking about myself and my kind. I didn't realize that I was speaking for women. I knew I was speaking about us, but I didn't realize I had a voice that was also adopted by a lot of them. They had identified with my experience or my emotions or whatever it was I was expressing. Lamaze was a trend at the time, so it felt good to think that I could do a natural delivery. So when the doctor said, on this day, at this time, I had to give up all this natural bit. And that gave the experience a dose of bitterness. When that happened, I got restitched. And I was on a wheelchair for a while. But when I portrayed Carcass-Cornucopia, instead of putting my child inside the wound, I put a bulol, a guardian, that connected me to our mountain brothers. Carcass-Cornucopia was, I had to make it because at 2 a.m, one night, I was woken by my whole front was wet. When I stood up, I looked at my cesarean wound and there was blood and pus flowing out of my belly. And it was so shocking. My cesarean wound had opened up. This was really traumatic. I had to express it somehow, and that's what came out. Carcass-Cornucopia, where I really gutted out the model. I cast my body, and I destroyed the belly, and I wrenched it apart, and I did the violence to it that I felt was done to me. A lot of it is ridden with the contradiction existing in the same frame. So because carcass, the violence of that is extended on the ground, on the floor, by music. So, in effect, all the pain is transformed into music. That's how we heal. I agree with that critic that says women have been released from domesticity. Well, their technology and science gave us everything that will relieve us from washing dishes, washing clothes. So there's that time. Remember, Norma Belleza would make her paintings while she was cooking. So it's like you squeeze it in between chores. But when the chore can be done for you by a machine, that's a boon, diba? The reports say it was faulty wiring. I was having a holiday in Spain. But they said that Papa had just installed a few lamps the night before. It was a very old house which had just been remodeled by my father. It gutted out the whole house down to the ground with my parents and my sister who lived in the second floor. My parents were in the mezzanine. My brother was in the basement and he was spared. But the fire grew because none of the fire trucks in San Juan were available. The mother of Erap, who lives across us, could see my sister hanging on to the rails, and she couldn't do anything. The idea of paradox, I like it a lot. I employ the idea of paradox a lot by juxtaposing one thing with its opposite in the same frame. It's a bit shocking, I guess, because the way that came to me was when I learned about the fire. I was in Formentera. It's a beach house. And I was standing in front of the cottage. I was being offered brandy, downers, anything to calm me down because the news of the fire was really devastating. But standing there, I suddenly could smell the rosemary that had been trodden on the night before, and I could hear the surf. And in the next cottage, there was a baby crying. So this feeling of being on a tightrope, it's like there's death, but there's new life screaming at me. That has permeated most of what I do. Pinaglabanan galleries started in the late 80s, maybe a couple of years after the fire. It was the phoenix that rose from the ashes of the fire that gutted out our home and took my parents and my sister. So the spirit of art, it was put into the grounds where my parents and my sister died. Awareness of art. I've always been immersed in it, so the awareness is like part of my consciousness. So art was like part of our life. My father would always have visitors bringing artwork. Sometimes it's my uncles bringing artwork, latest oil painting. Yeah, we would go to my Lolo Juan's house, and I remember going to his studio, and there was a painting that said, "The first thing I see in the morning." And it was a beautiful scene from his big window and his feet in the foreground. When we would go to his studio, we would see him paint. He would be painting there all day. In fact, I imagined one of my exhibitions to be there at his studio, sitting down at his feet and getting lessons from him. I enfleshed some of his paintings into sculpture. So I put the third dimension into some of his paintings, which were just shown in my brother's house. And some of the paintings were in the living rooms of famous people and would never be able to be seen anymore by the public. So I made reliefs from his paintings. That meant taking all the color out because the relief became white, but it still had the same intensity, I found. Much later, when I'm 29, my father said to me, he knew how unhappy I was being a psychometrician. So he said I could be his baby again and I could take any course I wanted. So I said sculpture, because I have always done things with my hands. Ever since I was small, I'd make little dolls out of yarn. My sister got her first car. I did a yarn face with sad and happy at the other side, hung from her rear view window. My earliest work was a 24-piece Inscape, which I named the Temple to the Moon Goddess. I was already a student at the UP when Chabet, our teacher in sculpture elective, told us the 6 students were chosen by him to show at the Museum of Philippine Art, the MOPA, at Dewey Boulevard. Because Arturo Luz had given him a space, 2 huge galleries with beautiful wooden flooring. So there were 6 of us, 5 guys, and I was the only female and the only sculptor. So all the walls went to the boys, and I got all the empty space. So I couldn't do any reliefs, but there I did my first floor sculptures and, of course, freestanding ones. I would pass by construction sites and see dead trees that have been cut down and bald. The roots were truncated and for sure the trunk, no? I was feeling very sorry. I wanted to show people the ugliness that was being committed. I wanted people to feel guilty for cutting down trees. And so I did one last intervention. For example, we blowtorched the trunk, the outside, until it was completely black. And to make it stand again, we used steel cables and pegged them to the ground. That was one tree. Another tree, we used little tiles of cut lead and used them like a samurai warrior's armor, wrapped them around the trunk. It was a duhat trunk, and in the old days, the bark of the duhat was used as medicine by the old folk. And by wrapping it with lead, which is poison, I wanted to make a statement. And the tree was saying, now I'm poisoned. When the lead was still fresh, she was looking like a cocktail singer, in a cocktail dress, like a sexy singer. So this ambivalence. The bronze bullets, I was about to say, it's not about my life, but it is in a way, because there was a coup d'etat and it was raining Armalite bullets on our roof. And my daughter was right under the skylight. So I said, Mishka, don't play under the skylight. And in the morning after the coup d'etat, there were shells in the roof. And so I had to commemorate that with an Armalite bullet magnified to 6 feet, just to contain all of that fear and violence. It came to a point where I had experienced most of life's traumas. Having a cesarean, giving birth, having fire destroy the family and the house. When I did Eshu, there's another floor piece where I was giving up smoking and alcohol. It was the last piece about my own bodily experience. After that, I thought to myself, if I do to the sculpture some kind of intervention, could I be in turn, in kind of shamanic terms, doing it to myself? Since the sculpture is a cast of me, every time it's taken from me, I know that there's a nano bit of me still in that hollow figure. And I still know I'm still there, although I'm not. And that's what gives me a step back so I can see the condition that I'm in. Looking back, that's how I think I healed all of my psychological bad experiences. Oh, baby, baby, it's a wild world. Don't be afraid. You have to be brave. There will be a lot of hard work, but the hard work will be pleasurable. It will be fun because you enjoy it. Also, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Sometimes when you're exploring, you make mistakes and an accident can lead to a good thing. You never know. And also, you can always turn your bad experiences, transform them into lessons. Don't lose the lesson.